So I'd like to ask now about a particular law that further restricts freedom of speech, and that is the defamation law. And what is the opposition party stance on that law? Thanks.
My question to the parties are basically, how would you thought of allow innovation to foster true civil liberties?
And thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts. I've got two questions. One of them is related to WikiLeaks. I would like to hear, granted that all of us want greater accountability and greater transparency, I would like to hear from each opposition party representative what is their view of WikiLeaks at its current performance as we read in the media, and what else might come. What would be the stance from your party position? I would love to hear that. That's the first question. The second question is this. I will cite what Dr. Chi has said, quoting his words. There is a notion that we have all been indoctrinated to a certain extent with different points of views from a same source over the years. Sometimes it also becomes, how would a political party do that deconstruction in those terms of the Singaporean mindset, especially when at stake could be the popularity of the political party. So what I'm asking here is, some of these things that are happening in Singapore, we have to also turn the corner as a population, as citizens. Especially, I refer to what Mr. Goh referred to, the approach of seeing a home as a home, or is it a property, and all that whole upgrading. Sometimes it's the politicians who have imposed all this on us, and we are now paying the price. But the politicians in this case, I feel like I refer to what that young girl brought up. We are caught in this bind, so I would love to hear when it really gets tough, how are you going to work with the population? Because the population too has to change on certain things. Thank you.
Sorry, Bill, can I just clarify what your last question is?
The last question, I'm using the housing thing as an example. I think it is too far gone that if we really want to turn the corner, political parties have to take a real unpopular stance with the population. Thank you.
Nobody asked the PAP members to go into politics. Nobody asked us to go into politics. The moment you step into public arena, you do not go crying to some judge or some lawyer that someone has said certain things to you, about you, that you don't like to hear. To me, defamation law can be used by private individuals to protect their reputations. Public figures choose to step into public arena, choose to be elected to public office. They have to be able to stand up to the heat of public office. For that reason, if anyone were to be in politics, I don't think the recourse could be given to him to sue someone under defamation. That is my view, and that's what I firmly believe in.
Restriction on civil liberties does, in fact, in my view, restrict creativity, because if there are controls in how you express yourself, controls on how artists perform, you need to have this permit, that permit, you need to have a certain set of regulations to adhere to before you can do something. That certainly would put impediments towards creative expression and therefore creativity. WikiLeaks, my view is that, okay, WikiLeaks is a bit of a playful, naughty kind of leaking of maybe unconventional communications which normally people do not get to see. It is precisely because of the lack of freedom of information that these things become juicy. So if the establishment, the governments are more transparent with what they do, I think then WikiLeaks won't have that kind of attention that it's getting now at this point of time. Housing issue, like I say, we have ideas on how to solve the problem, but firm, concrete policies can only be arrived at after the electorate puts us in the position to get the information and formulate those policies. For the good of the nation, every party has to go for national interest first before party interest. And even if elected, if there are unpopular measures that need to be taken, we will take it. That's it.
I have a slightly different view about defamation suits with regards to what Panelists says. Although we come into public service on our own way, there are certain things that are off-bound. Like people say, adultery, that is personal. I would say that the defense of a defamation should include public interest. And that is not public interest. That's character assassination, right? But if you are saying that the so-and-so is corrupt, then it's out of public interest that you are saying that you should be granted a defense in terms of public interest. So there is a very thin line in between what constitutes defamation and what is not in public interest. Right? I think it should be redrawn, the boundaries of defense. Right? Now, innovation and creativity, civil liberty, yes. A curb on civil liberty will actually curb innovation and creativity. I've been very active in Hong Kong, not locally, because Hong Kong have a lot of protests, right? I've seen very creative things that they've done, from mini bonds to 6-4 to whatever you have. And I think creativity of Hong Kong actually builds on that, right? Okay, for WikiLeaks, now, what is coffee shop talks or private talks should not be leaked. I would not want our reporters here to leak what I say bad things about the ministers in private. Off the record is off the record, right? If we leak, then there will be consequences. But on the larger part, as a nation, you run the nation, you will have to work behind the backdrop of the public stance. Certain things said in jest or said in private should be kept in private. I think it is doing a lot of harm to foreign services, diplomatic services, right? Okay. Mindset change. Now, if it's unpopular, then make it popular. PAP is very, very successful in selling you the ideas of greed, right? It's very easy to sell greed to you. Well, your asset enhancement, you can earn money from our HDB, and that's selling greed. So what our job is actually reverse that. To sell it is your home, it's not your investment. Investment is otherwise, other properties that you own. I think we have to constantly go embark on repeatedly tell our voters, look in our perspective. I think that's the only way we can do it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Defamation, laws. I just want to perhaps maybe just enlighten you on a couple of things. When you sue somebody, right, that somebody has a right to defend themselves in court, which is what we did, which is what I did. So we filed our defense. Lee Kuan Yew then goes to court and tells them he wants summary judgment, which means that he doesn't have to go to court to fight the case on 2 occasions. So I never got to court to, otherwise, being the plaintiff, he, Mr. Goh Chok Tong, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, would have had to get onto the stand on oath and be cross-examined, but they never did that. That tells you a lot about the defamation process in Singapore. The question by Brema about whether parties are you're able to do the take the unpopular decision. I would like to recount the experience of the SDP. You know that we have. Because when we started this whole process of talking about, and not just talking about, but really showing doing it by example, in wanting to create more political space for Singaporeans, and I'm talking about freedom of speech and assembly. We took a lot of heat. We took a lot of heat. People forget. When I first went to Raffles Place in 1998, I was called all sorts of names. Some of you are present in this room here, through the Straits Times. But we persevered. Why? Because we know that fundamentally, the cornerstone of a civilized society is for democratic society, is for people to be able to come together, assemble, and talk in a peaceful manner. But that was not available to us. Today, at least. Today, we've got Speaker's Corner. And that was not just given to us by the PAP. We fought for it. We sacrificed for it. Now that we have it, don't let it pass. Continue to use that venue then, to get into this culture whereby we begin to get into the psyche of Singaporeans. It's okay. Protests, peaceful assembly, demonstrations done peacefully is a good thing for society. That, I think, must be the message that goes out, and I hope I've answered your question.
Defamation law. Well, the law itself is neutral. I think the purpose of the defamation law is a good purpose. It wants to keep the place civilized. When two people are talking, they can talk. What's wrong with that? But if one starts to use words that are not very nice to hear, it should be stopped. That's where the defamation law comes in. But unfortunately, like all good things sometimes can be misused. So we have to look out for people who are abusing the law. To a certain extent, the defamation law practiced in England has been diluted here a bit in Singapore. Under the law, whatever we speak in Parliament is free from lawsuits. So Parliament, you have a qualified privilege. When you're in Parliament, you can say anything you like, except to make unreasonable accusation of another MP. Over here, a speaker can lift the privilege for certain hours, and you are naked, they can sue you. The qualified privilege is taken away. And I believe during elections, there's also a qualified privilege. You can say with a bigger latitude whatever you want to say on stage. But in Singapore, without fear, after every election, you see a series of defamation suits filed against opposition. Unfortunately, many opposition leaders are not familiar with defamation, and they are sued. It costs them dearly. That keeps many people from taking part in politics. Politics can be very costly if you're not aware of the defamation suit that can be filed against you. Now, I'm very lucky in the sense that I'm very careful. I say that the law is neutral, and I have used the law against 2 or 3, in fact 2 PAP ministers and 1 MP, and they pay me for damages because of the defamation. You were going to ask me, how did you escape all this defamation? The main thing is that do not say anything bad against another person, and you'll be quite safe. Which I think is a very funny thing. I think it keeps people from making loose talks. especially in Singapore at coffee shops. The Malay say hantam. I think this is something, especially among the important people. Even amongst diplomats, they like to talk things which are only for private use, but unfortunately for the presence of wiki